Now, all I need to do is pull up our PowerPoint and then get us where we left off. Okay, and that is, so I'm trusting that everyone had a blessed weekend. I know that you had a ushers event over the weekend, and I hope it was well attended, and that you all were able to do, a great job with the training and teaching, etc. I had, yeah, go ahead and share,
Yeah, I
Brother
was
Anthony.
gonna say, actually, we did. We had still a fairly nice turnout, despite um, the big service that was going on in San Diego.
Mm-hmm.
That several people were attending. A lot of our ushers, and especially the ones from down that way.
Right,
Um, Plus, I know your evangelism class was taking place. There's so
right,
many things going on this past weekend.
right.
Um, but we still had, we had just maybe, a little shy of what our average is, and so we were okay. Still, I think we had like 47, 49, which wasn't bad.
Right.
But
Could
I
have been
wanted to
worse.
share. Yes, it worked. I wanted to share with you. I pulled something out of our book. Why nobody learns much of anything at church.
Uh-huh.
The activity on what page is this? 123.
123. Let's see if it's the same as my page, because the pages are slightly different.
Okay, it's the airline injury issue.
Airline injuries. Okay, mine is the
Yeah.
exact same page, yes.
Yes, and so I use that as once we have broken up into our groups, I use that as our icebreaker and to get people up and active and involved in the workshop. But I use the same directions they have, but my tie-in was that cooperation piece, having to cooperate um, with our leaders at our church,
Right,
our presidents,
right,
and things of that nature. People loved it, and I think we have five breakout little groups,
right.
and only three made it to the safe zone. So when you run the
Wow.
activity, only three. And I asked them, what was the why? I asked the ones who did not make it, why didn't they make it? And they realized not working together, kind of
See?
thing, you know. And so,
Isn't that
yeah,
interesting?
yeah,
And
yeah.
not only that, it shows you that changing your style of delivering the message makes all the difference in the world.
Yes, yes,
Yep,
yeah.
yep, yep. And I'm grateful for this book. Like I said, I'll show it again for those that just don't know what it looks like. This book is a game changer for why nobody learns much of anything at the church and how to fix it. If you want to change how you handle lesson delivery or how you handle basic situations that will come up in your church, this is the book. And it's out of print, but you can still find it because, people are still able to get it. It might have some writing in it, might have some highlights in it, but you can still get it. At some point, they're going to have to re-release it because this book is pivotal in my class on homiletics. I might have to write something myself in the event that this book never comes back out, because I use this book, second to the Bible. Bible's first, this book is second. And so thank you for sharing that, because it's really important. Brother Kevin, you have anything to share about your weekend?
Oh, my weekend is very, very good. I just had a wonderful time, and went to pick my wife up from the airport. She was out of town for school herself,
Okay.
nursing. And,
Okay.
when she came back, we just enjoyed ourselves, went to dinner, and then after dinner, just kind of relaxing a little bit, meditated for preaching assignment on Sunday, and all went well. It was great.
Gotcha. Okay, so this book right here, I'm showing it again for those that are on YouTube. This is stellar. This book right here, if you want to learn how to reach people, you want to make sure that this book is in your arsenal, okay? And I'm grateful, and thank you for the compliments, those that are online. I truly appreciate it so much, because I've seen people teaching, and I'm not saying this to come against them, but I've seen people teaching in muscle shirts and tank tops, and I think it devalues your message if you are not willing to button it up a little bit. All right, make sure if you're going to be a professor, you really should take that seriously. Okay. All right, so we're in this lesson, and we're talking about the cone of experience, okay? And thank you so much for your encouragement, because every now and then there are people that send in some very negative commentary, and getting positive commentary is always a blessing. So I thank you so much. You do not know just how much your encouragement has meant already. Okay. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Okay. So we're talking about the cone of experience. And according to this book, the cone of experience is in page 104. And in page 104, and I will show it to the people that are online, that the cone of experience, the higher up you go, the more challenging it is for people to remember what they've learned. The lower you go on this triangle or pyramid, the better the opportunity is for someone to remember. So the bottom third of the pyramid goes like this: direct, purposeful, or personal experiences are more likely to be remembered. Contrived experiences, games, simulations, role plays, they are very likely to be remembered. Dramatic presentations, plays, puppet shows, etc., are the next most likely to be remembered. And then maybe the last quadrant, demonstrations, will catch that. After that, then it'll do study trips. It'll be study trips, exhibits, motion pictures, etc. And that just means that there's less likely the ability to remember or retain what you have learned, especially if you're being tested on it. And since we're going to be tested on some information, I do want to make sure that this group does not miss this last piece of information that's critical for their learning and their growing, etc. Okay? All right, so we know that if you are someone that is considered a visual learner, okay, visual learner is someone who learns this way. They remember what they see. So these are also people that might remember a face, but not a name. So they can see you somewhere and say, I know you from somewhere. I know you. I've met you before. But they can't lock in the name because they remember your face. And visual learners, can sometimes also be people that, could look at a picture, a graph, an image, and memorize it. And if you ask, what's on the periodic table, which is a science chart, they can tell you what's on there. Because a visual learner is like someone that has a photographic memory. If they see it, they can remember it. Okay? And so if we look at the next one, you have auditory learners. And these would be those that will remember what they hear. So you could say a number of things to them. A visual learner will not catch it, but an auditory learner will. And I'm gonna give you guys a point. Well, I probably shouldn't do this because I should probably publish it first or copyright it. So I'm gonna give you a snippet of a poem that I'm writing. It's based on wordplay. I want you guys to understand wordplay. And wordplay is really how you take words and enjoy them as you're saying something. So let me just go to one, because I preached this sermon, so it's already been committed to me. So you should be able to read it. And if someone tries to steal it, I've already put it on our website as mine. So I'll be able to validate that they're breaking the rules there. All right. It's called Being Ben. Be Being Ben. And I based it on Shakespeare's To Be or Not to Be. Okay? So be being Ben. Okay. To be or not to be. Me in Christ, Christ in me. He and only He helps me be the best me I can be. To be or not to be. Me in Christ, Christ in me. Christ leading, Christ guiding. Me being, me believing. Me obeying, me saying. Me no longer conforming but transforming. Me being the best human being because Jesus is being in me. To be or not to be. Here is the one who chose to be. In Christ, his be becomes being. To be being until being became Ben. This is what they will say when now becomes then. To be or not to be, right? So I use that to kind of talk about past, present, future. And it's really a play on words, but the idea is people are learning who you are as you are growing into you. When you are grown and growing beyond where you are, people are getting to know you more. But once you're gone, they'll be able to talk about what you was. That's why being Ben, features these three areas. And, it's what people write on your eulogy or on your epitaph or, on your proclamation or your resolution. When you're gone, they will say, this was a nice person. This is a giving person. This is a person who was loving. This was a person who was helpful, who was kind. We should live our eulogy today. What do you want to be remembered for? And start doing that now so that when you're gone, they would be able to say that this is the person who did these things. This is the person who was about these different things. So I use this because an auditory learner would love this wordplay. They would probably be able to recite it from verbatim based on what I just shared, or give you the gist of it. They may need you to repeat it 2 or 3 times before they really get it, just like a visual learner may need to see that photograph or that picture or that image 2 or 3 times before they get it. But they have ways in which they learn. That's the point that I want you to be aware, okay? So when we think about the Word of God, okay, because I see one says, someone says, I have the Bible right next to me. And that's wonderful, because I want, everything that we do is tied back to what the Word of God says. And so let me get to the third person that learns, which is, they call it the kinesthetic learner. They remember based on what they do, touch, and feel. So they're active, they're mobile, they like to touch things and do things. So this would be someone that if you said, okay, I want you to go and see if you can jump all the way across that sand pit. This person is going to try to do it because they're actively running and they want to master how far they got to leap to see if they can get all the way over the sand pit. Might be another one that says, I want you to see if you can make 10 baskets in a row. So they're going to go and they're going to do this and see if they can get 10 in a row, right? So these people learn. So if it's clanking off the rim to the right, they will automatically know a half a step over to the left. So that if it's clanking off to the right, they use the same motions, it'll probably go straight in, right? So they will self-correct. A kinesthetic learner is someone that will know that as they're doing whatever it is they're doing, if it's going wrong, they know how to self-correct because they see it's not giving them the results they're looking for. And people learn these 3 different ways. And according to our book in page 106, it talks about these 3 learning styles. So we want to focus on what it means to learn, right? So if we look at what the book says on 107, it says, tell me and I will forget. Show me and I may remember. Involve me and I will understand. So an active learner, and I'm still on page 7, is someone that is willing to go through an adventure, right? And so the outcome is not completely predicted. That's what an active learner is going to do. So they're willing to go camping. They're willing to go fishing, right? So they'll put some bait on the hook and toss that reel and that rod into the water. They may catch nothing, but they may catch something because, again, they're actively doing something, right? I'm on page 108. It says, in active learning, people may learn lessons the teacher never envisioned because the teacher trusts students to help create the learning experience. Learners may venture into unforeseen discoveries, and often the teacher learns as much as the students. So I'm learning, as we have shared over and over again, in terms of active learning, we learn from each other. While I direct a lot of the traffic, I want to make sure that you get a chance to share. And like Brother Anthony was able to share about his using something from this book to do a lesson this past weekend, and how the people had a eureka moment, a discovery, and when you're able to give people eureka moments, which is, eureka, I found it, that gives you the ability to know that that the lesson is driving home to them, okay? Okay. This book here, for the one that's looking, I found mine on Amazon, they're not paying for that ad. But this one right here, if you can get it, it's a game changer. This one right here, take a picture of it real quick. It is a game changer. Okay. I'm on page 108. Active learning is fun and or captivating. Okay, so what we understand about what is fun really drives back to our past as children. So, for those that are online, you might be able to participate in this part as well. So, here we go. Think about some of the games you played as a child that you really loved, and you can play for hours. In the meantime, our students here that are in class will be able to share the games that they've played while they were youngsters. Now, they might age themselves when they tell you the games that they like playing, but, go ahead and type it in the chat. For those that are online, for those that are in class, you can go ahead and unmute yourself and share the game that you played when you were a youngster that you could play for hours. All right? So while you're thinking about that, 2 games I loved playing as a youngster. One was tackle football. Whether you playing in the grass, in the field, or on the street. If you dumb enough to be tackled on concrete, that's your fault. You better have some juice and moves so that you don't get tackled on the concrete or the asphalt, because we played tackle football in the street. Another one we played a lot was basketball. And a lot of times you'll see me do this because basketball was really one of the most fun sports that I engaged in. And here's the thing about it. I did not have a growth spurt until I got to about the 11th grade. So everyone was towering over me. So I always got my shot blocked. And I had to learn how to get my shot off without it getting blocked all the time. So once my growth spurt caught up with the size of the other kids that had grown faster than I did, I was hard to defend because I had already learned how to get my shot off while I was being blocked all the time before my growth spurt. But what it allowed me to do is now be able to block shots, whereas before I was having my shot blocked, right? There's a word play. Shot, block, block, shot, right? So who else? Okay, there's one that says volleyball, all right? So are you one that spiked, all right? Or did you hit it like this, or did you hit it like this? Talk to me, open hand or fist? We got one that said, I love to play volleyball. Or were you the libero, right? Are you digging, or are are you bouncing it off somebody's forehead? What you doing? Type it in the chat. All right, what else we got in class? Who else is had games that you played that you could play for hours? Anybody else? Okay, so this one says fist for sure. Shame, because you want to fight the ball. This is how you play volleyball. You gotta do it like this. But that's all right. I understand. But if you wanna pound it to the ground and they can't get it, bam, that's going out. All right. Okay. We would play, Brother Anthony, we would play basketball till the lights went off in the park, and we still shooting in darkness. Okay? There's another one that says, love running tracks and cross country. One thing about running cross country, that's distance. So that means you got to have stamina, whereas if you are relay or if you are sprinter, you're doing short distance. So I'd be interested to know if you're doing, I'm guessing that cross country would mean you're doing distance only, not short runs. All right, for those that are in the class, what you got for me? What kind of games that you like to play that you could play for hours?
We got a lot of stuff in the chat. We got basketball, football, softball, red light, green light.
Red light, green light. I remember that. Hey, you don't need the lights on because you're calling it out. Red light, green light, right? And then the person has to run, and whoever can tag you first, then they get to be the caller of the game. What else did you got for me? Brother Anthony, what else you got?
We also had tag,
Tag.
Monopoly. I used to love Monopoly.
Yeah, did you land on Park Place a lot?
I was always the banker too. So.
So you had all the money. You can make it rain.
That's it.
All right, Brother Kevin, what games that you played that you could play for hours? What else you got?
Some of those were Kevin. Softball, red light, green light, dodgeball. Those were Kevin.
Okay, why is oh, I see why I didn't see it because I didn't go down in the chat. Dodgeball.
The only one we didn't mention is dodgeball.
Right. All right, there's another one that said hide and seek. Yeah, you can play that. Now you guys got to catch this one. By now you probably know I'm very competitive. So if I played the games, I wanted to play to win. And so I was six. And we were playing hide and seek. Okay? There's another one, freeze tag. I'm going to tell you about the hide and seek because this is where I knew that I had God watching over me. All right, so we're playing hide and seek in a friend's backyard. And it was a bunch of us kids, maybe 10 kids. And we would play and get caught, and then you got to start the game all over again and get caught again. So in this one particular instance, I said, nobody's catching me because I'm going to win. And usually when they give up and say, okay, come out, we can't find you, then you know you won the game. I remember going into the garage, climbing into the dryer and pulling the dryer closed and hearing it click. I need you to process that. I'm 6 years old. And I hear the muffled voices of people, running, trying not to get, because if you can get away from the one that's, and tag the tree or wherever the home base is, you can still not lose. You can tell I survived it because I'm telling the story. But I climbed into the neighbor's garage dryer, closed the door, I heard it click. Okay, so I hear them saying, okay, Virgil, we give up, we can't find you. I tried to push the door open, it wouldn't open. Okay, so it was locked. It gets worse, family. Y'all stay tuned. So here I am now. The kids are now starting to disperse. And there's no one around. Then I see the garage door close. I'm still in the dryer. And so I'm there, it's completely dark, and I hear, just like you hear my voice, the Holy Spirit talking to me. He was in the dryer with me and told me to breathe slowly, and he's right there, and I'm going to be okay. Someone's going to let me out. And we started playing games. If you ask me what kind of games we play, I can't tell you. But I can tell you this, that the Holy Spirit was in that dryer with me, a 6-year-old. So I'm in this dryer, and I didn't have the presence of mind to be afraid. because I had my friend in there with me, and he is talking to me, and he's keeping me calm. So he says, now in a few minutes, someone's going to open that garage door. And as soon as they open the garage door, pound on this dryer door as hard as you can and scream. Because remember, I'm in an airtight compartment. I have to manage the air and the oxygen. See, when people tell you there's no God, I say I beg to differ. I learned there's a God at age 6. So my little friend, call him a hood rat, because he didn't even come find me. But moving on. All right, they had finished eating dinner, and they sent him out to throw the trash in the garage. He had to lift the door. At that point, I listened to Spirit. I'm beating on the door. Bang, 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 bang. Help. As a 6-year-old, he looked at the dryer and went running into the house. So now keep in mind, it's no longer daylight. It's dark. My parents are wondering where I am. The neighbors think I went home. My little friend in whose dryer I'm in, he thought I went home. I'm a winner. I am not going to stop till I win the game before I go home. They didn't realize that about me yet. All right. So here I am in this dryer. I pound, he runs in. His mother comes out. She opens the dryer. She says, thank God. We thought you went home. None of them went to check, though. So they open the door, come out, and I said, I win. Now, many children climb into washers, dryers, refrigerators, and they never come out alive. If I told you every near-death experience I ever had, you wouldn't believe it. But these are the kind of experiences that my mother said, I just threw him to the Lord because I can't take it no more. I threw him to the Lord because I can't take it. That boy works my nerves, okay? So active learning is fun and or captivating. And we want to make sure that, that part of the lesson gets remembered, because, when you're playing games that all the kids get to participate in, nobody leaves saying, I didn't have a good time. Okay, number 3, 109, active learning involves everyone, which kind of ties back to what we just said. When you're doing red light, green light, or freeze tag, or hide and seek, somebody is the main ones looking for people, and the rest are hiding. Everyone is involved. Imagine that in a classroom setting, figuring out a way to teach a lesson where everyone is involved. All right? So active learning involves everyone. Number 4, active learning is focused through debriefing. Now, according to page 110, it says in the first paragraph, activity simply for activity's sake doesn't usually result in good learning. That's why we need to follow our activities with meaningful discussion and debriefing. So while I'm doing this, because I have someone that played volleyball, and I have someone that ran track and cross country. Anyone else online did anything athletic, or those in class? Did you have anything that was athletic? Okay. All right. So, because I don't want to only focus on athletic if the rest of us didn't have that. And I can get this lesson across without having to focus on athlete or athletic things. Okay, because active learning is active learning. So what about, was anyone in science where you had to do Experiments. What about that? Science and experiments. Brother Kevin, what about you? Any science and experiments?
Yeah, I used to love the science projects that we used to have. Um,
So would they have
one of the
been
things,
chemistry, physics, or biology?
it was more in the chemistry.
Okay, what about you, Anthony?
Especially when it was uh, making, mixing different little chemicals together to make like little volcanoes
Gotcha.
and things of that nature. So that was always like kind of fun because it fit in right with the lessons that we were talking about on the kinetics part because you're actually
Right.
touching, doing things,
Right.
so you remember those a lot. So that
Right.
was good. That was fun for me.
Anthony, was yours science as well? Your
Yeah, more physics and chemistry.
physics and
Took a
chemistry.
long time before I got into the biology stuff.
Okay, so chemistry. Let's put our attention on chemistry for a second. Okay, because you would have to, in some cases, you would have to take one reagent, right? One container that's filled with something, and a different container that's filled with something else. And you could mix them together, like it would be like, for instance, if you had a green substance, no, a yellow substance and a blue substance, you mix them together, you get green. Right? And so anytime you mix two different substances together, you will get a reaction. Right? So it would be, and chemistry is designed to get a reaction. Okay, so when we are teaching a lesson, and here's the thing that you have to do before I get to that part. The thing you have to do is you have to write down what your discovery was. So if you put 1 milliliter of green paint and 1 milliliter of yellow paint and 1 milliliter of blue paint, and you mix them together and then you stir them, you will get green. 2 milliliters of green. Right? 1 plus 1 equals 2. Right? So you get 2 milliliters of green. And you can make the green darker or lighter based on if you put 1 milliliter of yellow and 2 milliliters of blue, then you'll get a darker shade of green. Or if you do 2 milliliters of yellow, 1 milliliter of blue, you will get a lighter shade of green. Okay, but each time you would mark down what you start with from everything that you're putting in, and then at the end what your result is. And every now and then you would get a result that you weren't ready for, right? So if the paint had too much water in it and it wasn't stirred properly, you might get a lighter shade of the color because it wasn't properly stirred so that the color is more solid before it goes into the blended container, right? So you would have to figure out what went wrong because you were expecting this shade, and they would give you these color swatches to say, okay, if you did it right, this is the color that will match. And if it was off, you had to come up with why you thought that was off, right? So you could process that and say, well, I think it was off because, this one was left outside overnight. This one was left at room temperature. This one was in the freezer, right? So you can get all of these different answers based on this, but you're actually actively working through the problem, and you're debriefing through your answers. Okay? So one of the things about debriefing is it requires, on page 110, it says, if debriefing or evaluating an experience, I'm in the middle paragraph, about 1, 2, 3 down. Okay, debriefing or evaluating an experience by discussing it in pairs or small groups. Helps focus the experience and draw out its meaning. Debriefing helps sort and order the information students gather during the experience. It helps learners relate the just experience activity to their lives. Okay, so we have someone online that has a Bible. I want to go to one story that becomes, I think we talked about it before, but we didn't read it in the Word. I want to go to the Word just because I think it will help us process this learning experience. Let me get the scripture. 1 second, okay. Okay, here we go. All right, I'm going to Matthew chapter 14. All right, so for those that are online, we're Matthew 14, and we're starting at verse 15. Okay? And this is what it says. And when it was evening, his disciples came to him, saying, "This is a desert place, and the time is now past. Send the multitude away, that they may go into the villages and buy themselves victuals," which is food, "and shelter." But Jesus said unto them, "They need not depart. Give them to eat." And they said unto him, "We have here but 5 loaves and 2 fishes. And he said, "Bring them hither to me." And he commanded the multitude to sit down on the grass, and took the 5 loaves, 2 fishes, and looking up to heaven, he blessed and brake and gave the loaves to his disciples, and the disciples to the multitude. All right, so this would be on par with a chemistry experience or biology. It would be in that same general category. You know, if you got 5,000 people, you should not be able to feed them with 5 loaves of bread and 2 fishes. That's not supposed to be able to happen. So the Bible says not only did he tell the disciples what to do, but he prayed over the fish and the bread. Okay? Says he looked up to heaven and prayed. So he's looking to God to make this work. Then he break, the fish and the loaves up, and gave them to his disciples, and then told the disciples to give it to the multitude. Remember, this is a lot of people. And so my question is, and we talked about this in class before, the eureka moment. At what point did they realize, okay, because they started off with, this is not enough, this is not enough, this is not enough, this is not enough. At what point did they realize that something miraculous is happening here? Would it have been after the 3rd or 4th person? After the 10th person? But one thing that would have been sure, the disciples would have started looking at each other to see if each other is having the same experience. And then they would have been recognizing, he's doing the same thing I'm doing, and look at all of this that's happening. We're feeding thousands of people with what could not have been enough. We told Jesus it was not enough. Again, if you got 1 milliliter of yellow and 1 milliliter of blue, it should produce 1 shade of green every time you do that experiment. In this case, the 1 milliliter of yellow and the 1 milliliter of blue came out the perfect, eggshell white. Hold on a minute. That can't happen. And so each of them that have mixed theirs up and it came to eggshell white, they would have all had the same expression, surprise and shock. So as we are leading and teaching, we got to be mindful that someone's asking about Moses and voting. We're not on that lesson right now, but I can address that, but not at this point right now. Give me a minute. Okay, so whenever there is lessons that are going out, there are lessons going out, there must be room for debriefing. And the briefing has to happen right after the event, right after the experience. And I guarantee you, they were all talking about, we didn't have enough. How does that happen? How did that work? What went on that we're not aware of, right? And so they give this reflection, which is A, which it typically, active learning experiences typically involve emotions. So it is appropriate to begin we begin our debriefing right there with the emotions. And then it says, at the end of the second paragraph, our emotions tend to cement things into our memory. I guarantee you that the disciples, when they emotionally dealt with what had happened, no one would ever have to tell them again that if Jesus prays over a couple of fish and a couple of loaves of bread, don't worry about it, right? They wouldn't have to do it. Here's another one. It says interpretation. Okay, interpretation says, asking people to identify a message or principle from the experience. So they would be able to, now I'm on page 111, about the end of the first paragraph there, the interpretation question, connecting the fresh experience with some other aspect of life. So they would be able to say, okay, what areas in my life is there not enough? And how is it that God can give me more than enough? Now, most of us are tied to the idea that we have more month at the end of our money. And I think that this lesson that we just read from Matthew 14 ties back to that. He's got resources, which is fish and bread. And when you pray to the Lord, you got to expect that the Lord's going to do something with your resources. All right, so the interpretation, taking the fresh experience and tying it to another aspect of life, okay? So this is not to say that you test or tempt the Lord, but I have been there where I knew I didn't have enough gas to make it to the gas station, but I made it to the gas station. I've been there when I knew that the amount of money it was going to cost me to fix my car was not going to be enough, but I had to take it in because it was going to need a tow if I didn't take it in right away. And when I took it in, the mechanic who was aware of my vehicle and knew when you bring it back, you're going to have to fix this, and it's going to be about this much. I didn't have that much. But when I did take it in, he said, oh. And usually when they go, oh, right, you're saying to yourself, please let it be good. Please let it be good. Please let it be good. And it was a minor thing. It wasn't the big thing that you thought it was going to be. So sometimes when you get a biblical story, it's reminding you that God is in control. And he knows your situation. He knows what you have need of before you ask it, right? And so active learning, we got to remind people. That's why when we preach or teach, we got to remind people that these lessons are to help them process their life and see life from another angle, right? Here's another one. I'm on the next paragraph. Now you want your listeners or your learners to discover the message. Rather than telling your students the answers, take time to ask questions and encourage self-discovery. All right, so based on what we just talked about, Jesus feeding thousands with a couple of fish and a couple of loaves of bread, how does that relate back to you and your personal life? Think about where you knew you didn't have enough and how, by trusting God, you made it through, right? So I've got Brother Anthony, Brother Kevin, you're going to share your piece, but some people are going to type it in the chat. And I would love to hear what they say about that. So as they're typing, you guys can share your portion of the story. Brother Kevin, you want to go first?
I'm gonna let brother Anthony go.
All right, Brother Anthony, you go first. And remember, every lesson where someone has less, but someone else, but they find it may not be, your lesson might have been something different in that capacity. And you may not have had that happen to you. It's okay if you say, well, that didn't happen to me. So we can move on from that. But I guarantee you it's happened to other people. So go ahead.
I mean, in a way, I know. I'm sorry, Anthony. I know I said to you first, but I think one of the life lessons for me, because I have a big family, and I remember coming into my teenage years. My mom basically is a single mom, a single parent, and I remember her telling me and my older sister, I have a sister who's a year older than me, telling us that she would try to do the best that she could for Christmas for the rest of our brothers and sisters, and that we would have to go without. And being that we were older, we would have to understand that. Mm-hmm. And that was kind of difficult because we didn't understand it, but
right.
we were trying to understand the process because she took care of us so well that we didn't know what being without meant. And so at that time, when she said that we had to sacrifice that year and help her and be happy for our younger brothers and sisters in the process of doing that, we would have to go without. That was a tough lesson to learn.
Mm-hmm. Brother Anthony, thank you, Brother Kevin.
I would say a time in which I didn't really see an ending or an understanding of how the situation was going to end was actually, I'm going to say, like when I was in undergrad. I was kind of a fish in a big, small fish in a big pond. Not a lot of guidance in regards to it, and I just making it through, working at night and going to school in the day. One semester, next semester, I had to switch to work at, work in the morning so I could go to school at night and that kind of stuff. Just not seeing it through or having a clear understanding of how I was going to make it, but yet made it through.
There you go. There you go. One of the things that really caught me by surprise, and I know this is going to help someone because when the Lord showed me this, I never ever forgot it, and it brought me to tears because when people have, and I need to use this term so I can build this argument out. When people are missing a limb, right? So let's just say, for instance, you got a friend and they're missing one arm. You're not going to ask them, let's go play basketball, right? Because they're missing one arm. So it's an unfair thing. You can play chess, you can play checkers, you can play Chinese checkers. There are things you can do. Might even be able to play ping pong, but you could not ask them, let's go play football or basketball ball, right? Because you know that that would be unfair, right? So that's an obvious disability, okay? Now let's take it from another angle. A person that's missing one leg. So you aren't gonna ask them, we have someone here that says, they like to run track. You would never ask the person with one leg, let's try out for track together, because it would be wrong to even do that to them, right? Because I'm talking about when we're kids and we're growing up. So you see an obvious disability, you figure out a way to have fun with them so that that disability does not become a liability, right? So in a case like that, you might say, okay, what games can we play? So you could probably play hide and seek or red light, green light with someone with one leg, because that disability, it's really stop and go. Simon says it's really stop and go. They may not necessarily win, but they could still have some fun. And then if the kids get together, they can make sure that the person that has one leg could win the game. And kids do that. I mean, kids are sensitive enough to do things like that. Well, here's the thing that nobody catches. What if the disability is mental? They got both hands or both arms and both legs, but there's something slightly off up here. Not enough for you. I mean, they're in normal classes with everyone else, but you know that there's something that's slightly off. A lot of times we just expect them to act like the rest of us. And the Lord brought to my thought process, you would never say that to the person missing an arm or missing a leg, to just suck it up. But we do it all the time to people that have something that's slightly missing up here that does not allow them to process information quite like those of us who don't have that going on, right? And those that are in education, you know exactly what I'm talking about. I mean, you deal with it all the time where there are learning disabilities, okay? And so from outside, and I remember when I walked to high school, I would pass by this place, and I'm trying not to get emotional. And it was a place that had a bunch of adults that were thinking like children. And they were the size of my parents, but they had the mental capacity of a child. And the people, when we would, and I would see kids walking by, and they would throw things over the fence. And, it's cruel, but kids can be cruel, even though kids can be very considerate and nice and compassionate and caring. Kids can be really awful too. And I remember, not wanting to get too close because someone says they have the strength of an adult, even though they have the mind of a child. So you can't get too close to this because they might grab your shirt and they will hurt you, pulling you to try to get you to come inside to play with them, and you can get a concussion because they'll pull you and they've got the strength of an adult, right? So I remember passing by. Sometimes it's, it's bright and sunny, sometimes it's raining, and they're standing out there in the rain, and the people say, come inside, come inside. They didn't have the capacity to process coming inside. They're standing out there and the rain is hitting them. And I know that sometimes when the Lord shows me stuff like that, and I said, you're showing me this for a reason. I don't always know, because I might be in the 10th grade trying to figure this out. But I'm saying, why are you letting me see this? Because he wants us to be sensitive to the people who can't say for themselves what they're going through. Now, why are all these lessons important? Because you may have someone in church that can't process the sermon. and can't even process the Sunday school lesson. But, you know, they're that adult that they're almost 100% there, but they're missing one or two markers that allows you to be normal. So they might rock in their chair, or they might tap their knees a lot while they're in class. And you as a member of the church, you know, or you as the teacher of the class, owe it to them to reach them too. See, we tend to like to just talk to the ones that can talk back and connect with us. But one thing I learned about this class, this book, go after the ones that can't do it as much as you go after the ones that can. Right? They may not be able to process and give explanations about what it is that you just did by way of, you know, the discussion on Jesus and, you know, a couple of loaves of fish, and a couple of loaves of bread and a couple of fish. They may not be able to put that together. They may not be able to put an action plan together on the other side of that lesson. But they have just as much right to know how Jesus impacts their life as the next person. So our eyes have to be focused on the one that is in need. Whether it's the one that can process or the one that cannot. Now, in page 113, and our time is almost up, talks about active learning and the learning disabled. Now, according to the writing of this book, it says, educators estimate that up to 20%, I'm in the first paragraph, 20% of today's students possess some type of learning disability, such as ADD. Okay? And when you can't sit still, or when you mix up letters, so we see the word THE, but they see the word EHT or ETH, right? Or they mix up numbers, right? So we see 1, 2, 3, they might see 2, 3, 1, right? So they come to church just like the next person does, right? Or you see them, they can't sit still in class, right? So everyone else is able to hold their book like this and read. But this one has to constantly be moving. They get up, they sit down, they get up, they sit down, right? So you know something is a little bit off. Now, others will complain, why don't they sit down and be quiet? They're making too much noise. But those of us who understand what this book is saying, or who are in the industry of education, they don't have to be told what's going on. But how many churches have never even considered that you might have an adult with ADD in your Sunday school classroom? Or in the church worship service? So the last paragraph here, I'm gonna go to page 114, and I'm in the beginning second paragraph, which is really saying active learning. It says active learning opens new and freeing windows for the learning disabled. Good active learning involves all the senses, right? Next paragraph. And because kids with learning disabilities are more successful and more captivated in the active learning classroom, they are less of a discipline problem. Because you're making sure, oh man, my battery's about to go dead on YouTube. Lord have mercy. This always happens. All right, let me go to the last paragraph of this on the disabled. Okay, so what a special ministry the church can provide to kids with learning disabilities. And it can be accomplished without treating them differently or separating them from their friends. Active learning works for all types of learners. So if we just focus on everyone learning actively, we got a chance to not have a segment of the church that's disconnected from the rest. And remember, in Luke 15, you got three lost things. You got the lost sheep, the lost coin, the lost son. In the case of the lost sheep, you got 1 out of 99. In the case of the lost coin, you got 1 out of 10. In the case of the lost son, you got 1 out of 2. Okay? In each case, okay, in the first two cases, there was a search for that which was lost. But in the case of the two sons, the father did not go searching for the son had to go searching for the father, because the father didn't leave the son left the father. All right, so in that story, the kid learned how to come back home. But in the other two stories, the lost thing had to be found, right? So the idea is, if as we're teaching or leading or guiding, we don't lose anybody, we're to the good. And active learning or active teaching, active preaching will eliminate people that get lost in the lesson. Okay? So I'm on page 118. It says, I don't believe we learn by our triumphs. I think we learn by our mistakes. There's a lot of truth right there. We don't learn by our triumphs as much as we learn by our mistakes. So we're about at the end of our time. And so I guess what I'll have to do is give you guys a prep sheet on what to study for the final exam, and get you your midterms back so you can look at it from that perspective and see what you did well and the things that you might need to do better so that you can pass the final. And certainly these last few lectures will tie into the overall lecture, so you'll be able to add those pieces to whatever was not covered in the midterm, right? So you just take the last 2 or 3 weeks and add them to what you saw on the midterm, and you will be fine, okay? So in as much as, well, you know what? I can end the YouTube clip and give you guys a chance to ask questions. So I bid everyone on YouTube adieu. Thank you so much for being with us. This was really helpful, and I hope you were helped as well. All right? God bless you, everyone on YouTube, and we will catch you later. Okay, let's...